So y'all know how I live in Kansas and how they recently passed a law here to make it illegal for me to use public restrooms, or at least make it wildly less safe for me to use public restrooms without scrutiny and additional difficulty. Well, so the law is not even supposed to go into effect until July 1st. Yay for that. But it is already affecting people because, as is the case not infrequently, I mean, the purpose of such a law is not really to actually criminalize using the wrong bathrooms, because if they actually wanted to specifically criminalize it, they would have actually wrote something in that illustrated how it was a crime, outlined some of the punishments for it, but they didn't do that. So really the purpose is just to increase the harassment and public tension around trans people and gender nonconforming people using bathrooms. And we know that this is primarily going to affect cisgender women, you know, who are not 100% gender conforming. That's because there are way more cisgender women who are gender nonconforming than there are trans people who would be going to the women's restroom. You know, there are just way more of those people on just the raw numbers. So the likelihood that a cisgender woman is going to end up in some kind of problem in this situation is more likely. And there are plenty of other situations where, like, for example, if you have a child who you need to take care of and who needs to enter the bathroom with you. Honestly, gender nonconformity for women is nearly impossible to avoid. Even if the traddiest of tradwife influencers out there, you could easily pick them apart and find unfeminine qualities. You know, if the scrutiny is high enough, then there's gonna be an issue for people who are like, oh, you're too tall, or your jawline is too manly, or some bullshit like that. But yeah, no, I was gonna lead into the next thing, because yeah, if you have children, that's one thing. But here's another situation where a bathroom ban like this is negative for people. There is a cisgender woman with a disabled son who tried to use the restroom at the Wichita Public Library. She claims that she was ordered to leave the restroom at the Central Branch Library after taking her nonverbal and disabled adult son into the bathroom with her. Kansas recently banned people from using bathrooms and other spaces not designated for their assigned birth sex, which is obviously a law plainly targeted at trans and intersex women, but also is useful for keeping disabled people and their opposite sex carers at bay. This is the kind of thing, like, this is why it's not cool for these laws to pass as quickly as they're passing and without scrutiny, because there are situations like this, which there are plenty of people who could have brought this to their attention, but they deliberately, you know, hold the meetings at inconvenient times or at the last minute so that there aren't as many people who can come in and say, excuse me, no, this would negatively affect my family, and I'm not even trans. You know, here's how your anti-trans law is negatively impacting other stuff. Right-wingers see no problem with this because it's another undesirable out of the public. I don't know if they would have an issue with this. You know, like, if someone had brought this to their attention beforehand, and I don't know if someone did, is this the kind of thing that they would have even cared about? Or is that the case? You know, that, oh, we don't care if your disabled son can't use the bathroom without assistance? Or is the expectation that a woman and her disabled son should go to the men's room? But no, she would be probably removed from the bathroom in that case. Actually, it's not clear in this article. Okay, yeah, no, here it is. Karen Wild said that she makes the trip every week to this library. Never once in this time has any of the library staff or patrons objected to her bringing her son into the women's restroom. But shortly after entering with her son on Saturday, a male security guard approached the restroom and informed her that Dunville couldn't be there. The disabled son couldn't be there. He walked away, she said, once it became clear that another patron was using the restroom, but that person also objected to her son's presence. So I guess, like, this male security guard entered the female restroom. Like, we talked about this recently when we covered that video of the cisgender lesbian getting ejected from the bathroom by male police officers, that, like, male police officers entering female-only spaces to violently eject, in some cases, like, masculine women. Or, like, yeah, like, in this case, he didn't actually physically make them go away. He left the restroom after it became clear that there was yet another woman in the restroom who didn't want men in the restroom. And of course, like, yeah, no patrons have ever said anything about her disabled son being in the bathroom before, but on this one instance, the other patron in the restroom also said that, like, her son shouldn't be in there. So, like, if you have a 9-year-old son who is not quite confident enough to walk into a bathroom by himself if he needs a little extra help, Like, if you have a disabled son, I guess you have to go into the male bathroom as a female, or like, suck it up, son. Have fun in there, making a mess and not being able to like do the procedure correctly. Ostensibly is why you have someone with you in the bathroom in the first place. Or stay home, which again is ultimately kind of the point of all of these laws restricting public access. When we have laws targeting public drag, public access to restrooms and things like that, the point of it is to make it so that there aren't public spaces for you to be in, that you stay home, or that you desist being what you are, so that you can like, at least if you're in public, then we don't want to know about you. You need to be completely ignorable. Like, you need to be completely non-persona. We don't want to know. We don't want to listen to you. We don't want to think about you. I would have asked the security guard to help him, since I legally couldn't if I were the mother. Yeah, like, so you don't want me to bring my adult son who's disabled into the bathroom. Like, well, why don't you take him into the men's restroom and you can wipe his ass? Like, why don't you do it then? Oh, you don't want to? Okay, well, maybe shut the fuck up then and leave me alone. I have OAB, and if someone tells me to leave the restroom, I'm just gonna piss myself. Yo, that would be fucking hilarious. Yeah, and I guess that's another question, y'all. Is this an ADA violation? Is her being the carer for this disabled man, does that make it so that this is an ADA violation? Like, saying you're not allowed to use this restroom? And it bothers me. Like, you're a security guard. You're not even a policeman. And why are you enforcing the law? This is literally a rent-a-cop. I guess I don't know what the protocol is for hiring security at a public library. Like, is that a state employee? I guess he is a state employee, but his job is to provide security at the location, not to enforce the law that hasn't even come into effect yet. We still have a month, a little bit more than a month, for the ACLU to come in and say, hey, no, you don't get to do this to people. Does that mean that cis women can't change the diapers of their cis male children in public bathrooms now? I don't actually know. The law was not written very well, so it could be possible that if you were to read into its furthest technicalities, that you would maybe not be allowed to bring your penised son into the bathroom even to change his diaper. Isn't it deeper than that? They, the fascists, don't want cis people to be gender nonconforming either. Supporters of the anti-trans stuff mostly see it as a bonus to suppress GNC people. I mean, yeah, we have talked about that recently on stream. It is clear that there is some motivation to restrict generally the idea of cross-dressing. Yeah, like, what they do want is for there to be full conformity on this gender binary in all aspects of life. Fundamentally, these are the people who want women wearing dresses in the kitchen with a petticoat, and they're barefoot, and they're popping out babies all day, and they don't leave the house, and they're drugged up all the time, because that's the only way that these women who did used to live that lifestyle, the only way that they could get through it was to be drugged all the time. And then men are out there breaking their bodies, dealing with bad workplace environments, and coming home and being alcoholics and beating their wives. Like, this is what they want. When they're like, wow, the 50s was a great time. Like, that's what they imagine. Have there been any updates on the ACLU? Have they challenged the law yet? I haven't checked, actually. I don't think that there have been any updates about the ACLU. They have condemned the law back on April 27 when it passed. When the veto happened and everything. Yeah, so I'm assuming that they're gonna sue. I don't know if they are, though. I would guess at this point that the ACLU is getting kind of spread thin, because they have numerous lawsuits in numerous states across the country. And because there isn't a clear criminality built into the Kansas law, it's possible that, as far as bathroom laws go, despite the fact that this one is far-reaching enough that it could also impact one's ability to change the gender on your driver's license, it might not be, like, the highest priority, which is, like, an unfortunate thing to think about, being like, oh, yeah, well, it's Kansas, and maybe you wouldn't do well in the courts here. Like, I don't know how many of these cases are being taken partially based on, like, whether you'll be successful at litigating them. They can't legally deny him access to the library because of his disability. They have a separate lawsuit there. They would have to make another bathroom available or provide him assistance. I'm curious if this is going to end up being a lawsuit. I bet that she would have an easy time of it, because there is the clear ADA violation that, maybe like many of these other laws, they aren't necessarily going to be struck down because of the explicit discrimination against trans people aspect of it. like the laws against trans kids having access to healthcare, the most strong argument that can be made legally is the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, which says you have to treat everyone legally under the law. And so therefore, if you say that this medicine is acceptable for use on intersex children and children with precocious puberty, then you can't deny other people the same medication because it either has to be accessible to everyone whose doctor says it's needed, or it can't be accessible to anyone no matter what the medical consensus is. Like you can't pick and choose one or the other. So, it might not even be a thing where it comes down to this is sex discrimination or whatever. Like it might not even be about trans people specifically. So similar case here, it may be that this law in particular isn't even challenged primarily by a trans person or otherwise gender nonconforming person. Like it could be that it being a clear ADA violation might be the thing that gets it struck down, which is unfortunate, but sometimes you have to pick the strongest argument when you're challenging a case like this, and you might acknowledge some of the secondary reasons during your legal argument, but there are going to be certain aspects of it that are just there's more clarity in the law around disability. I have zero faith that any Trump-appointed judge will give a flying fuck about basic legal arguments. It's going to come down to who is the judge. Right. It's going to come down to who is, and like where you file the case and who it gets appealed through. That's one of the decisions that these legal organizations have to make, is they have to choose which district they're going to file their lawsuit in based on what the successes and precedents have been like in that. Exactly. An individual judge might care about disabilities. He may have some health issues himself because judges are old and have incontinence issues. Or, you could have someone who just like has a disabled person in their family and is aware of that and happy to sort of help on those grounds. Because while you're trying to litigate trans people's existence out of public life, you are going to have a bunch of tertiary damage that's done that you probably didn't consider or think about. And it just, like, you have to use those to exploit an individual caring about that issue, because unfortunately, I don't think we have enough people who work for the government who are on our side. We need more of those people, or we need to capitalize on the fact that, like I say, every time we're talking about this bathroom issue, cisgender women are the group who are going to be most affected by this bathroom policing. So maybe you want to get a female judge who has short hair, and maybe she would be amenable to the argument that, well, Your Honor, the reason why these laws are not good is because it increases scrutiny, and would Your Honor like to be stopped before you enter the restroom and questioned and have your ID requested before you use a public restroom? You can kind of play on that a little bit. Fun fact, when Germany divided post-World War II, East Germany removed all the Nazi-appointed judges, but West Germany did not. The latter was a major point for radical left movements in Germany in the 80s. I did not know that. It seems like that would be the obvious thing to do. But then again, we're in America, and Trump appointed a bunch of ideological judges, and, we're not impeaching any of the ones who are making obvious wrongdoings like Clarence Thomas. Will the real Soros-backed judges please stand up? Please stand up. Please stand up. So it remains to be seen what's going to happen with this situation in particular, whether she is going to sue and get her very easy ADA case money, and whether the challenging of this law is going to be successful. I certainly hope so, because as we've talked about it before, I was assigned female at birth, and so that's the bathroom that this law is saying that I should use in every public space. But I am a non-binary person who is visibly gender ambiguous, and that means that the female restroom is going to be the space where there is more scrutiny on me. And so realistically, the only safe option for me to do, except for using the non-binary, like when there's a gender-neutral disabled bathroom available, I use that one. But in a case where there's no such option, the safest thing for me to do is to break the law and use the men's restroom. Because if I talk, people are going to hear this, and they might not be like okay with me being in the female restroom. Whereas if I go into the men's restroom, it might be a little bit easier to except a voice like mine. Not that people talk that much in public restrooms, but that's the thing about transphobic weirdos is there are rules in the bathroom about not fucking bothering people and not talking to people, and people are still gonna do it. Like, they're gonna do it more. So yeah, it's not gonna be good. It's already not good. The law is not even in effect, and people are already weaponizing it against marginalized and vulnerable people. Buckle up. Like, let's see how this goes over the next couple of months. Fingers crossed that my right to exist in public spaces doesn't actually end up more limited than it currently is. Yay.
Happy Pride from myself and my patrons, especially want to shout out Tiago Nascimento, Mersh Rolvog, Amanda B., Danielle McDonald, Sarah A., Spooky Heather Sylvia, Robin Olson, Michelle Winter, Athiette, Wellington Marcus, Jamie Jam, Desi Quiche, Suzanne Maynard, Nova, Kevin Young, Sojo, Elizabeth Bartell, and Mr. Atheist.